Hey everybody, Eternal Fire here, bringing you a video on the Resto Druid class guide to the pre-patch to the Legion expansion 7.0.3. Today we're going to be going over the talents, we're going to be going over the spell book, and we're also going to look at the single and Aoe target healing for the Resto Druid class. With that said, let's go to the talent trees. In the first tier, we have Prosperity, Cenarian Ward, and Abundance. Prosperity just gives you 2 charges for Swift Mend and reduces its cooldown by 5 seconds. Cenarian Ward puts a protective barrier on your on a friendly target for 30 seconds. Any damage taken will consume the ward and heal the target for a certain amount of healing over 8 seconds. I prefer that because I really like doing 5-mans, mythics, and challenge modes. I plan to do mythic pluses on this character, so I think I'm probably going to end up sticking with that because it's really nice to have when you get in tight spots with your tank taking a lot of damage. Abundance is a passive ability. For each rejuvenation you have active, the cast time for healing touch is reduced by 10% and critical effect chance of regrowth is increased by 10%. So this is basically the answer to the fact that we don't have the regrowth glyph anymore, where you had a 100% chance to crit with regrowth. Instead you can use this. The only kicker is you have to have more than 1 rejuvenation up probably to make it worth your while. Well, I think with less management, you can use these 2 other Prosperity and Cenarian Ward much easier. We're going to drop down to the next tier. You have Renewal, Displacer Beast, and Wild Charge. Renewal is just an instant heal for 30% on you in all shapeshift forms. It's a pretty good ability, but hopefully you wouldn't need to use it. I really like Displacer Beast because it really helps with mobility. You just charge forward, and then your movement speed is increased by 50% for 4 seconds. Wild Charge, you have a few different abilities based on what form you're in. In the non-shaped shifted position, you just fly to an ally's position. That's really valuable in very select few encounters. We're going to drop down to the next tier. I don't really understand what this tier is all about. Basically, you can have some abilities from the either balance class, the Pharaoh class, or the Guardian class. Really what it is going to come down to, I think, is the top abilities here, where Astral Balance Affinity, you have an increased range of all your abilities by 5 yards. Feral Affinity, you have an increased movement speed by 15%. Guardian Affinity, you have reduces all damage taken by 10%. I'm currently using Balance Affinity just because it's been kind of fun when I'm doing quests or whatever as Restoration. You can just kind of pop into Moonkin form and, do whatever you want to do. Dropping down to the next tier, you have Mighty Bash, Mass Entanglement, Typhoon. These are going to be your crowd controlling abilities. Mighty Bash just stuns a target for 5 seconds. And then Mass Entanglement, it just roots players or targets to the place for 20 seconds. It can be interrupted by damage, and I don't really find it that valuable in a PvE setting. Then we're going to go over to Typhoon, which strikes targets within 20 yards in front of you with a violent Typhoon, knocking them back and dazing them for 6 seconds, usable in all shapeshift forms. This is a really good ability when used with Ursul's Vortex, especially in like a challenge mode or I guess Mythic Plus situation, where you can throw down your Ursul's Vortex in front of you or on the targets, and then you can Typhoon them. And what Ursul's Vortex does is conjures a vortex of wind for 10 seconds at the destination, reducing the movement speed of all enemies within 8 yards for 50%. The first time the enemy attempts to leave the vortex, winds will pull that enemy back to its center. The thing I like about this is you throw down Ursul's Vortex and then you use Typhoon, which stuns the targets for 6 seconds, but you can group them all together and get a big AoE stun in challenge modes. That was really beneficial if you had the time to use it, but sometimes you didn't because you were spending so much time healing, obviously. We're going to drop down to the next tier, and there's some really good ones, good abilities here. Soul of the Forest. When you cast Swiftmane, you gain Soul of the Forest, increasing healing of your next regrowth or rejuvenation by 200%, or increasing the healing of your next wild growth by 75%. So as far as your talent build that you choose, if you're going to take Soul of the Forest, you should take Prosperity, so you can have the 2 charges of Swift Mend. I choose to go with Incarnation Tree of Life. You shapeshift into a Tree of Life, increasing healing done by 15%, increasing armor by 120%, and granting protection from polymorph effects. Functionality of rejuvenation, wild growth, and regrowth, and entangled roots is enhanced. Last 30 seconds, and you can shapeshift in and out of that during its duration. I really like that ability because you can pop it in those really tough times. You can pop Wild Growth, which is much stronger, and then you have instant cast regrowths. It's going to drain a lot of your mana, but it'll help you survive in a tough situation. It's one of your biggest cooldowns as a Resto Druid. Cultivation, when Rejuvenation heals a target below 60% health, it applies Cultivation to the target, healing them for a certain amount over 6 seconds. I think that's far weaker in comparison to Tree of Life and Soul of Forest. Dropping down to the next tier, we have Spirit Blossom, Inner Peace, and Germination. Spring Blossoms, Spring Blossoms, each target healed by efflorescence, which used to be your wild mushrooms, is healed for an additional 5,019 over 6 seconds. So you're just kind of getting a little buff on your ability that you should be using quite regularly. Inner Peace reduces the cooldown of Tranquility by 60 seconds. The only time I can see you really needing to take this ability is if you know you're going to be doing an encounter where every 2 minutes you're going to need that really big AoE raid heal. And then Germination, you can apply Rejuvenation twice to the same target. I think that ability used with Abundance could be interesting. Definitely have faster healing touches and much more high chance to crit with Regrowth, but I've tested out Regrowth without that ability taken, and I seem to, crit just fine quite a bit. So we're going to go over to Moment of Clarity. Moment of Clarity now affects the next 3 regrowths. Moment of Clarity is used with Life Bloom. You have a 4% chance with each tick of Life Bloom to get a free regrowth, so I don't really think that's too beneficial in the long run. Stone Bark reduces the cooldown of Iron Bark by 30 seconds, and it increases healing from your heal over time effects by 20%. So that means the majority of your heals, Rejuvenation, Life Bloom, the regrowth, heal over time effects, are all going to be buffed. Also, your Wild Growth are going to be buffed by 20%. And then Flourish simply extends the duration of all your heals over time on friendly targets within 60 yards by 6 seconds. I think that Stonebark and Flourish are both very powerful. However, I really prefer Stonebark because I want the heals that I put out to begin with to be more powerful, not just brought out longer. So that is the talent tree. Let's look at some of the spells here. We're just going to be going over the restoration spells. We're not going to be looking at Growl, for instance. Bark Skin is a 20% damage reduction for you, last 12 seconds. It also is usable while you're stunned in any way. Efflorescence is, again, your wild mushrooms, so you just pop it and it goes like that. It's a little AoE heal over time effect. Entangling Root, it's just an AoE crowd control. Cenarian Ward, we talked about that. Healing Touch is your slower casting healing spell. It's a strong healing spell, but the cast is slower. So, if the raid is stable, if your tank is stable, you can use that to conserve mana. Otherwise, I would use Regrowth because it's a faster heal and it does take up a lot more mana, but you have a good chance to crit with that as well. So they're pretty equal as far as healing goes, but Healing Touch is just slower and less mana. So if you're not in an emergency, you should use that over Regrowth. Dash is one of my favorite abilities. It increases your movement speed by 70% while in cat form for 15 seconds. So basically, when I'm sitting to drink and my tank has started pulling ahead, I can sit and finish my drink and then know I can quickly get to him. Tree of Life, we talked about that. Displacer Beast, we talked about that. Innervate is a new ability for the Resto Druid. You infuse a friendly healer with energy, allowing them to cast spells without spending mana for 10 seconds. So that's going to be something really beneficial in a raid. Iron Bark, the target's skin becomes tough as ironwood, reducing all damage taken by 20% for 12 seconds and increasing healing from your heal over time effects by 20 seconds. So this is really going to be something you're putting on your tank for PvE. Life Bloom is one of our main hots. It heals the target over 15 seconds. When Life Bloom expires, it dispels. The target instantly heals for 20,000, and it's limited to 1 player, so that's something you're going to want to keep on your tank. Rebirth is our battle res. So Regrowth heals the friendly target for a certain amount and another certain amount over 12 seconds. Regrowth's initial heal has a 60% increased chance for a critical effect. So that's, going to be one of your main emergency fast heals. Rejuvenation is one of your main hots. Heals the target for 34,000 over 15 seconds. In this patch, we no longer have mass res. We have a spell called Revitalize, which returns all dead party members to life with 35% of maximum health and mana. It's not castable in combat, so it's basically your mass res, just the healers have it now. Nature's Cure Cures harmful effects on friendly targets, removing all magic, curse, and poison effects. Revive is your single target res. Typhoon, we talked about that. It knocks players back, stunning them, and so you can have control of where your adds are. You put Ursul's Vortex down first, and then use Typhoon, and it brings them all back together in a nice little pack. Swift Mend is a really great ability. It instantly heals a friendly target for 58,000. Wild Growth is your AoE heal over time effect. Heals up to 6 injured allies within 30 yards of the target for 23,000 over 7 seconds. Healing starts high and declines over duration. That's a very powerful AoE heal. Tranquility is your main AoE raid heal. It heals all allies within 45 yards for 75,000 over 6.7 seconds. Healing increases by 100% when not in a raid. So that's a very powerful ability. That's your main raid healing ability, and it's up every 3 minutes unless you take the Inner Peace talent, which reduces the cooldown by 60 seconds. So we're going to look at some of the passives now. Astral Influence is just from that one tier where you pick either Boomkin, Feral, or Guardian. Living Seed is a passive ability. When you critically heal a target with the direct healing portion of Swift Mend, Regrowth, or Healing Touch, you plant a Living Seed on the target. When the target is next attacked, the Living Seed will bloom and heal the target for 50% of the initial heal, and it lasts for 15 seconds. Another passive ability is your Mastery is Harmony. Your healing is increased by 11% for each of your restoration heal over the time effects on the target. So you want to keep your hots up all the time, especially on your tank, and this is only going to benefit them more. Omen of Clarity, we talked about that with your Life Plume, has a 4% chance to go into a clear casting state, making your next regrowth cost no mana. And Ysera's Gift is used to be a talent, and now it's just a passive built-in ability. It heals you for 3% of your maximum health every 5 seconds. If you are at full health, a random nearby injured ally will be healed instead. So that's the spell book. We've gone over the talents, the spell book. Now we're going to go over the single target healing rotation. So you're going to start with Rejuvenation. You're going to pop up Life Bloom. You're going to hit Regrowth just to get that hot up. So you have currently three hots. And then at that point, if they're stable, you're going to be using Healing Touch mostly. You're going to make sure that your hots are continue to be applied. You're not going to let them fall off. You do want to let Life Bloom fall off, however, because it gives that big heal when it falls off. So then after it falls off and you get that big heal, just reapply it. So you're going to use Healing Touch, and then you're going to use Regrowth as an emergency heal primarily and to keep your hot up. Then you're going to use Swift Mend in an emergency situation where you need to pick somebody up fast on top of Cenarian Ward. Then we're going to talk about our AoE Healing Rotation. I always typically use Wild Growth first. It's a fast cast and it heals everyone in a 5-man dungeon and 6 injured party members in a raid. And then I use Tranquility, is a very effective your best raid healing ability. Another thing you can do when you're healing a raid is you can put Rejuvenation on the people that are taking extra damage. So you're using your Wild Growth, you use your Tranquility, and then you use Rejuve on the people taking extra damage. So that's the Resto Druid guide right there. I hope you guys liked the video. Please feel free to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.